Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Next 2020. I'm your host, Gabriela Heizer, and welcome to the show today. Today, we have very exciting guests, three guests for law school graduates. So I'd like to welcome Alejandra.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Yoshi.
What's going on?
Hey, and Lauryn. Hi, Lauryn. Hey, guys. So welcome to the show. Congratulations on all of you guys for graduating law school during a pandemic and all the craziness that we'll talk about later.
Thank you.
So to start, let's go around and you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves, what school you went to, and what you plan to do now with your new degree. So Alejandra, let's start with you.
Okay. So I just graduated from the John Marshall Law School, the UIC John Marshall Law School. And I was working at Pico County Public Defenders this past semester, but with the whole pandemic thing, that kind of fell through. And I was recommended for a position as an assistant public defender, but with the whole pandemic, there was budget cuts, so I'm on a wait list now. So currently, I'm up in the air. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next.
Yoshi, why don't you go next?
Cool. So I'm Yoshi. I actually went to school with Alejandra. So we're really good friends and close. But along with Alejandra, I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so we finished law school. Gratefully, I still have a position. I'll be working as a corporate transactional associate, hopefully in mergers and acquisitions at Kirkland and Ellis in the Chicago office. But aside from that, I was super involved in law school. I also went to the UIC John Marshall Law School, and just looking forward to the talk.
And Lauryn, what about you?
Hi, everyone. I am Lauryn Younge. I attended Santa Clara University School of Law, and I graduated as well. So congratulations out there to all the 2020 graduates. And even students still in law school right now in the midst of this pandemic. But I'm very excited about that accomplishment. And I'll be working with a startup come October after the bar exam. So right now we're all preparing for the bar exam, but we're so grateful to be able to have the opportunity to talk to you all today and just share a little bit about our journeys through law school.
Agreed.
Yeah, thank you guys for agreeing to be on the show. I know it's crazy bar prepping and I can't even imagine, but we are grateful to have you guys on the show, and we definitely want to make this show beneficial to all the listeners and to you guys as well. So to any listeners, if you have any questions for these amazing guests at any point throughout the show, just drop it in the comments and we'll make sure to bring it on the screen and answer your questions. So let's go a little bit personal about you guys first before we go into the industry as a whole, okay? So what motivated you to begin your career in law? Lauryn, let's start with you. Let's go the other way this time.
Okay. So that's a great question. So two things motivated me. When I was in the 6th grade, we had a career day, and an attorney actually came in. She was a Black woman, and she was very poised. She had on heels and like a suit. And in my head, that I made the decision at that moment, I want to do what she does. I want everything. Like, I love the way that she spoke. She was just so eloquent. And I don't remember her name, unfortunately, but at that young age, I had that in my head. I didn't really know a lot about law or that field, but that's where it kind of started and surmounted for me. And then I just grew passionate. I did research. I interned at law firms. Through my undergrad career, I got involved. And I just kind of continued to reach out to people, resources, gain mentors in that area, and navigate my steps toward figuring out how can I get to law school. And that it's surreal to have had that goal come complete, and we're almost done with the bar and everything. So it's been a long journey for me, but I'm super excited that I had the opportunity to do it.
That's amazing. What about you, Yoshi?
Yeah, so I'll try and keep it short. I know we're on like a time limit, but first and foremost, I guess I didn't know I wanted to be a lawyer. My mom said I'd always be a lawyer or a judge growing up, but I was trying to be rebellious and be what I wanted to be. So I guess it started after, my undergrad experience of, I was actually in journalism. And so I went to University of Missouri. I had all intentions of being an anchor on ESPN. I actually wanted to be a baseball player, but got hurt, neither here nor there. So I had to figure out the backup plan. But actually my senior year is when racial tension hit University of Missouri. And long story short, I was reporting, anchoring in the middle of racial tension where threats against Black people were sent everywhere, right? Like, I'm going to kill the next Black person I see if you come to campus. So I was just like, not only do I not want to be reporting on this, but I want to not only tell the story, but impact the story, right? I knew I had more to give. And when you talk about representation and being in spaces that are much needed, and having the confidence to fill up those spaces, I knew that was part of my potential and I knew that was part of my story. So I realized how impactful and how flexible the Juris Doctorate degree is. And even without knowing exactly what practice area, I made the leap of faith, knowing that I could do a lot with this. And so here I am 3 years later, going into transactional. It's not like criminal defense or civil rights or anything like that. But I do realize that representation is much, much needed, especially in capitalism, right? So, money talks. And I want to be a representation of what we as minorities, specifically when we talk about diversity, what we can do in the spaces when we put our minds to it. So,
yeah, that's amazing. And I definitely agree with that. I think it's so important to talk about diversity and the representation that's needed, which is part of the reason why I'm glad you guys are on the show, because I think you three are great and do great things for the field. So thanks. Let's go to you next.
So it's interesting that representation has been a common theme amongst the three of us, because the reason I went to law school is kind of twofold too. So growing up, I mean, my parents were born in Guatemala, and they came over here when they were in like their 20s, and then my sisters and I were born here. So my parents have like a very heavy accent when they speak English, and so I grew up translating for them, filling out important documents, that sort of thing, and it was awful, really, just seeing how my parents would get treated. People would talk to them like they were stupid, or they would take advantage of them, or it was awful as like a little kid, 6, 7 years old, standing there and knowing that something was not okay, but not being able to put my finger on it, not being able to say, well, hey, that's not okay, or contextualize it. So I always wanted to become something so that I could protect other people's parents in the future, or just people in general, who are treated differently because of, their heritage or ethnicity. But also my senior year in high school, I was born and raised here in Chicago, and I went to Lane Tech High School, and I took an introduction to law class and immediately fell in love with the law. I thought it was interesting, it was challenging. And I did a mock trial competition where Justice Jesse Reyes, he was actually judging the competition, and I was blown at the fact that he was a Latino man as a judge. And I figured, hey, if he can do it, then so can I. And that's when I knew I wanted to go to law school.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Yeah. So with that, I know, Alejandra, you were just talking about all of that. What was the biggest obstacle on your journey, and what is one advice you give to someone who might face a similar challenge?
And that's such a difficult question to like pinpoint like one thing, right? What was my biggest obstacle? And I feel like things are gonna sound really cheesy or like cliche, but honestly, I think my biggest obstacle was myself. I was not at all confident in my abilities and my intelligence, in my skill level. When I first got to law school, I kept doubting myself. I was like, what are you doing here? You're a first generation college graduate, first generation law student. I don't come from, great means or anything like that. So I had a very low self-esteem, and I kept comparing myself to everybody. Like, why am I not studying 8 hours? Why am I not this? Why am I not that? And that really got in the way of just my own potential, because I was so stuck on what is it that I can't do, instead of focusing on everything that I was great at and in investing my energy into that instead.
Yeah, definitely. And what is I'm sorry, Yoshi, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I mean, along with sort of what Alejandra was saying, it's a hard question to sort of put one answer to. I think specifically as diverse candidates for a Juris Doctorate degree, right? When you look around the room, it's easy to feel like you don't belong somewhere. And I think especially when you have big goals, right? Big goals of going, in big firms or where we aren't represented very highly. And I think in the field itself, you look around and you don't see a lot of diverse faces, right? So imposter syndrome is super real, but I think even bigger is, accountability, holding yourself to your goals, even when, it may not seem feasible. You have people telling you that's not possible, right? I think my experience is pretty unique because a lot of people told me I couldn't make it to a top 10 firm from a non-top 100 school. Like I had to be at a top 20 school, a top 15. And for me, my success is never counted by anyone else but myself, right? So to go along with like what Alejandra said, a lot of the things I struggle with was, am I doing enough to get to these goals? Because I don't really have that blueprint. Like a lot of people haven't done what I intend on doing. And so going and persevering day after day, taking all the no's, right? And really taking them as sort of, you're going to regret that, right? You don't know it, but I know my potential. And a big part of law school is a fight with confidence. It's a fight with your ability. But to Alejandra's point, like you are your biggest and worst proponent and enemy. So as far as getting in your head, you got to have a support system, right? Being first generation as well, having family who are rooting you on, and having a support group in law school is super important. But having people who see your dreams even when others don't is going to get you to a finish line that maybe at one point you didn't see as possible. Hashtag the struggle is real.
What about you, Lauren?
Okay, just to piggyback off of what everyone else was saying, I think the term, I remember I learned this very vividly my first year of law school, is imposter syndrome. And so if you haven't heard of it, I highly suggest you look it up. But it's just basically feeling like you don't belong in a space or environment that you're a part of. And the thing is, all of us here, we filled out our applications, we applied to law school, and we were accepted by schools, right? And so that in and of itself means that we're deserving to be there. But when we're talking about minority candidates, sometimes depending on the school, like the lack of support, just not seeing a lot of faces that look like us in that space, your mind tends to doubt your abilities. And my one piece of advice would just that resonated with me throughout law school, when I would have these feelings are not fact. Okay, your performance is fact, your discipline is fact, your work ethic, doing things when you're scared, those are things that help with your mental. So I just had to continuously remind myself, like, I might feel bad today, but there are still things that I have to get done, and I'm gonna take a second to acknowledge that, but then I'm gonna move forward. So a lot of the psychological things that to be honest, in my life, I experienced, but I didn't have to experience in the school setting. I was used to doing well in school, and so law school was really retraining and reframing how I thought about the work, and also just that experience being in that environment. I can totally relate to what Alejandra and Yoshi were saying about just feeling like this lack of self-worth, but you realize the only person that you can focus on and control is yourself. And so you have to continue to stand up for yourself every day and fight for yourself. And there is so much more that came from that experience outside of me just achieving the accomplishment of obtaining a Juris Doctorate. I've become more confident because of that, because of the experience that law school brought me through. So I just appreciate that so much.
Yeah, and I would actually say that a big part of why law school is difficult is because you're learning to advocate, right? You're going to be learning to advocate on behalf of people, but you're also learning how to advocate on behalf of yourself and be like, no, no, I don't want to, or no, I can't, or this isn't right, I deserve more. And we're so used to being in those in spaces where we're not, I guess, they're not meant for us. They weren't created for us, right? So we're used to being uncomfortable and kind of being like, well, maybe I should stay quiet because this, or, I know that because I speak two languages, maybe I should get paid more, but hey, I'm just lucky that I have the position at all, So we're learning to advocate on behalf of ourselves. And I think that's also been a very big task for all of us.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's great. Like, you guys just finished law school career. I just finished my first year of law school. So like, I'm still in the beginning of the journey, and everything you guys are saying it's like, wow, I definitely felt that my first year. And I don't think there's a lot of resources to help people who feel like that. So what is one advice you guys would give is the best resource or most valuable resource for people to, not even just imposter syndrome, but anything in law school, like the whole journey? It's difficult. What is the best resource, do you think, for people in that position?
I can take that and start that off. I would say definitely having that support system that Yoshi touched on. And also that support system should include not only people in law school, but people that care about you and that love you, that are in your life. For me, I am from Florida and I went to law school in California. I knew no one. So I moved across the country, coast to coast. And it was a wake-up call because the whole time I was fearful of doing it. But once I was accepted and I'm a woman of faith, I prayed about it and I knew that this was the opportunity God had for me. I was like, okay, help me with this, God, because I don't know anyone in California. And he opened up doors for me and put people in my life that really spoke into me, that encouraged me, that supported me. I remember particularly Thanksgiving was a very hard time for me because I wasn't able to go home because finals are really close to Thanksgiving. And for me, that's very big in my family. And so that was my first Thanksgiving not being home. And I had friends in law school that invited me into their home. Shout out to Joanna, and some of my other friends that were willing to feed me, invite me into their family gatherings. So things like that, those relationships, like I will never forget that because I remember feeling so alone and people were willing to open up their homes to me. And so finding those people is very crucial. Like you all cry together, you are challenged together, and you make it through together. And it's so much better when you have like that community, I feel like, and that support. Also, shout out to the Black Law Student Association. Those were a lot of the people that I spent a lot of time like getting mentorship from and just like pouring into me, like the upperclassmen, and really made my journey very, very much more easier having that community to like just sit and vent with. So for me, that's what I would say a support system is definitely a major resource.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll add where to begin, honestly. So I think as a diverse student, I know diversity is the key here, right? And I think I'm gonna keep it real. I think as diverse students and minorities, especially of people who may be considered like, the top of our family, like maybe we're the first to go to high school, the first to go to college, the first to get a graduate degree, we're praised for being something that is not seen in our communities. And so it's easy to feel like we don't have anyone or to feel like we're alone in this fight. And I think first and foremost, especially in an environment like graduate school and law school, where there's so many things that you have to learn, you got to learn. I mean, it's countless, right? Laws, how to advocate, I can name a ton of different things. I think the first thing that I would advocate for and tell you to do is let down your guard, right? Let down your guard and your pride. I think the first thing that I realized was everything that I've wanted to do and everything that I want to continue to do has been done before. I just have to find the right resources and the right people. So when you talk about resources, there's no need for me to recreate a wheel that's been created already, right? What am I going to stress myself out and try and find the answer from looking under 100 different rocks when it's right in front of me by just simply letting my guard down and saying, I need help. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Being vulnerable in that sense, I think I find it too much. I love mentoring people. I take a lot of minority students under my wing, but I do that because I realize that we don't have to do it alone, right? And although law school is very inherently there's a lot of competition inherently, there's a lot more to gain from collaboration, right? And even though you're looking, I guess, to your lateral peers, there's a lot to gain from that, right? Either learning from their experiences, but reaching up and reaching down, right? So be willing to give before you get. That's another thing that I found a lot of resource in, right? And planting so many different seeds, because now 1 year, 2 year, 3 years pass and you see all of these plants, figuratively, these plants start to bloom. And so, you know, just to sort of recap, like, we have to let our pride down. We have to like seek help, ask for help. There's no problem with that. And you're going to be wrong. So get used to being wrong. Like the quicker you get that in your head, I think there's a lot of growth behind that. But in the process, don't lose who you are. I think a lot of people try and create themselves in a way that isn't necessary, right? You got here for a reason. You got here off of the laurels and the actions and what you've done in the past, and you've done it well, right? There's no need to reinvent that. So when you talk about knowing yourself and conquering law school, a new environment, you got to like hold true to who you are, what got you there. And then it's just a matter of learning the game, learning the formula, because law school really is a formula. But why do you need to recreate the formula if someone, you know, the scientist who you're looking for has made it already?
I'm definitely going to agree with them. Shout out to the Latinx Law Student Association, ELSA, at my school. Honestly, that was my biggest resource. So it's a support system, right? It's having people who did that thing, you know, who cried after their first semester, or, you know, who cried before they even got their grades, just because you don't know what's happening, right? You're like, am I going to fail? Am I good enough? Am I not? You're freaking out. And then they're like, yo, chill. Like, it's fine. You're going to be fine. You'll see. And then you do turn out to be fine. Making those connections with people who had been through the same thing as I had, I mean, was unbelievable. I know that I've made friends now that are going to be with me for a lifetime, because they're just so willing to, you know, like Lauryn said, like, open their homes up to me and accept me with my background and who I am. And also to Yoshi's point, I think honestly, one of my biggest resources was myself, was staying true to myself and being who I have always been. Because Yoshi's right, like, law school, like, it'll do something to you, and people will like try to be something that they're not. And they'll try to, you know, we've heard horror stories of like people like tearing like pages out of books so that other people couldn't borrow them, just to like sabotage grades and all that stuff. And it's to me, that was ridiculous, because Yoshi's right. Like, you gain so much more from being genuine and like being somebody's friend, not being like, yo, what can I get out of you or anything, but just being like, yo, hey, I'm here to talk, like, whatever, we can study together, we can, you know, go out for a drink together. And then those are the connections that, you know, people are gonna be like, man, you know what? Ali's my girl, you know, like, and so if I hear of a job opening, you know, in the same field that I know she's interested, I'm gonna go to her, or, you know, whatever the case may be. But just having a support system and having people there to push you when you're just like, I can't do this, man. Like, I don't know what I thought or who I thought I was. And for people to be there to remind you and be like, you are that girl. You are that girl, and you can do this.
Period.
Yeah.
But I just want to add something really quickly to what Alejandra just said. I think, you know, so often we get wrapped up in the hoopla. You get wrapped up in what's being said around you, whether that be tests, how I did in grades, how I did this and that, like gossip. I think one thing is for certain, one thing that you have to realize and to maintain for all my future law students, even current law students, is a lot of the people who talk the most have the most to fear, right? And even more importantly is the people who talk the most are projecting their own insecurities onto you. And so it's very, like, the people who talk the most usually don't do the best in grades. And so by them saying, I did this, like, you need to be doing this. I've been in the library for 18 straight hours. What are you doing? Like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, stay your course, look down, look ahead of you, have the people cheer you on to give you the gas that you needed to run this marathon. But other than that, put the blinders on it and focus on you and run your race the best way you can.
I think someone in the comments asked if we joined our 1L year. I did. I don't know about Yoshi and Lauryn.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
As far as what, like, I think like Bolsa and Elsa.
I think.
Yeah, I joined. I know grades are super important. So I made sure grades were always at the top of my list. But you have study breaks, you got lunch breaks. I mean, most of the meetings and the events were through the lunch and dinner breaks. So that was my break, right? It was really networking, building relationships. But you got breaks, right? As long as you make sure your priorities in order, join what you want to join. The best tip I always give 1Ls is, make sure your grades are on point. Make sure you're doing what you need to do, but don't be ignorant, right? You have to check your emails. You have to make sure you know what's going on around you. You don't want to miss the job of your dreams because you were so buried in your books and you missed the email that your career services office told you about, right? I see that so many times. I mean, unbelievably so. It's like, I don't have time to check my emails. Well, good luck in practice, but you know, I mean, just stay abreast. I know it's a lot, but the more organized you are, the more you can handle.
Absolutely. I joined my 1L year too. But yeah, just having that balance, I think, is very important. And recognizing that every single opportunity, task that comes up that you say yes to, recognize that means that something else that you're saying no to, or maybe not right now. You don't want to spread yourself so thin that you're trying to do everything that you're getting nothing done. That is not pushing the needle. It's not productive for you, and it will mess with your mental health. I've been there. I can talk offline if you want to talk about that. But you definitely want to stay focused and stay prioritized. So be intentional with your yeses, where you're choosing to allocate your time, and the books definitely needs to be that top priority. But also networking, these affinity groups, not only will they provide your support system, but you can network through them. You can network with your peers. The person that you went your law school cohort. I remember during my orientation, they were telling us someone in this room is going to become a judge, maybe several people. So don't be nasty to your peers. Don't be nasty to the people that you're going to go into this profession with. So you want to think about that, your reputation. That's just very important. And it really shouldn't need to be said. But I think as minorities, like there's a spotlight on you, and you think people may not be watching you, but you determine the type of person you want to be. And so when you're interacting with your even with your peers, just think about would you want somebody to do that to you, and those interactions, and how would you want to be a light to someone, encourage them, help them out when they need it, just checking in with people. It's very important. I think as you develop this kind of acumen as a law student, but also thinking about yourself as a professional and walking into a career that's highly regarded and that is built on trust and collaboration, and building relationships with other people.
Mm-hmm. And so that's all really great stuff you guys just dropped. And my next question would be, I guess, switching over to the pandemic and how your careers have been affected. I know, Alejandra, in the beginning, you kind of talked about it a little, so maybe you can start us off. But I just wanted to know how the pandemic affected your last semester and your post-grad activities, things like graduation, the bar exam, like what's going on with all of that, job perspectives and things like that. I know, sensitive topic, I'm sorry.
Graduation, I want to cry. Yeah, so
sorry.
So this past semester, I've always been interested in criminal defense, but for some reason I I was trying other things out in law school, which is what law school's for. You want to try different areas out and figure out what works for you, right? So then I always knew I wanted to do criminal defense. So I did it this past semester. I loved it. I loved being able to work with people who like grew up in the city like I did. And I think one thing that I encountered there was like, sometimes like the attorney, like there was just like a disconnect, you know, like the attorneys are talking in legalese to like the defendants. They're kind of like jaded, and the defendants feel like, this is like my freedom on the line. Like, why aren't you paying attention to me, you know? But my internship there got cut off short because of the pandemic. The courts ended up closing. So I wasn't able to stay there as long as I wanted to, but no big deal. I did apply for a position there as an assistant public defender, so as an attorney there. And I think things were going very, very well for me. I passed the first interview and everything was great. I did the second interview, and then I just didn't hear anything from the county public defender for a while. And I got worried, and I'm like, what's going on? Finally, I did get an email back, and they were like, congratulations, like, we've recommended you to become an assistant public defender. So I was like, oh, yay. And then they were like, but due to budget constraints, we can't offer you the position right now, so we're going to waitlist you. So I do think that COVID kind of affected, the budget that Cook County had in place and stuff. And just probably also the amount of people that were retiring or leaving their positions kind of figured, okay, I can't do that anymore. Like, I'm in the middle of, something big, so I should probably stay at my job, and the positions, weren't as many. So I'm kind of in this boat where I honestly have no idea what my next step is. I mean, I know right now my main goal is to pass the bar, right? Because without that, I can't be an attorney. But I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm going step by step. I'm trying to adapt, and I'm trying to be, proud of that, because I think I'm so used to, law school. You have to be successful. I'm so used to getting good grades and doing this and being on top of my stuff that now I'm like, ooh, I'm like slacking. But just gotta keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
What about you, Yoshi?
Yoshi?
Yoshi.
Oh, wait, he's gonna log right down in me. There you go.
Okay, Lauren, while we wait for that.
All right, sorry, what did I miss?
Oh, okay. The question, did you want to answer it next?
How was the pandemic?
Okay, yeah. So, sorry about the connection got a little messed up. So yeah, COVID, it's impacted a lot. I mean, my last semester of school, I was the Student Bar Association president. And so we had a lot of things planned. I mean, and to have graduation taken from us, I mean, I'm not a selfish person, but I mean, at the end of the day, you work 3 years for a big moment. I think more for your family than anything, right? I mean, to be one of the first lawyers in my family, that's a huge moment. But aside from the sentimental, I think it uprooted everything. I mean, I almost remember that week we were planning a whole summit. I was planning a Black Male Legal Summit, actually. And it was happening that weekend. And then everything stopped. Like, it was like the world just stood still. And so I think there's a lot of things that were affected, but I think overall, just the day to day, right? And it's, how do you be productive at home? How do you be productive in the middle of a pandemic and a Black Lives Matter movement? I'm a Black male myself, and you look at the news, it's almost like every week something's happening with Black men or just Black people, and it's just exhausting. And I think productivity has been the biggest thing, but remaining positive and just knowing that you have to focus on the things you can control, especially in today's society, and taking the day-by-day approach has been the thing that's been affected the most. Just waking up every day and it's like, today's a new day. Doesn't matter what happened yesterday. You weren't productive. You didn't study as hard as you needed to for this bar. These next 24 hours, what do you got? And so Gratefully, I'm so thankful that, my job hasn't been, impacted too much. We were supposed to start September because of the July bar, but now it's in October. But regardless, I'm very thankful and grateful. But at the same time, even throughout all of this, I've always been really busy. So I've tried to remain as busy as possible, even with studying for the bar. So I actually still am mentoring people on the side and doing what I can to make a lane for the next generation of lawyers, especially specifically minority lawyers.
Definitely.
What
about you, Lauryn?
Yeah, I honestly, I'm so grateful to be on a panel with you all. But I would just, and I also want to say, I think that's the key, just paying it forward. There's so much negativity going on right now. And with the pandemic, there's been a lot of loss. And I think everyone should take the time to acknowledge how this pandemic has impacted them. I know that first couple of months, or the first month, like the first couple of weeks rather, it was an adjustment for me. I had a routine. I like to do my work at school. My home environment wasn't really conducive to me doing work. I associated that with like my free time and my lounging time. And so when the school was shut down and I couldn't go to the library to study, I really had to focus and be intentional about how can I be productive in my environment that I have accessible to me. So really pointing on that point that Yoshi made about just being focusing on what you can control. And that was a big lesson that the pandemic taught me. And also just being resilient. I definitely had big plans for graduation, being in California, and all my family and friends were coming from Florida all over to celebrate with me. And so I definitely felt like they got robbed of that opportunity. But we did end up having a virtual graduation, so to speak. And not my school, but my parents, my family hosted a virtual graduation for me. Some of my friends and colleagues made me a video just encouraging me because they knew I was going to start taking the bar, about how great that this was for me, and the impacts I was going to make, and just kind of like encouraging me through the process. And so in these moments, I really encourage you. Each of us have a lot going on, but just to find ways to give that kindness, to spread and make someone's day, just to give a little bit more joy, because I know those people that did those things for me when I was kind of feeling like, I don't know about this pandemic, moving into bar prep, having to move back to Florida, all of these transitions going on. It was moments where I felt a little bit discouraged. And so to just know that people were thinking of me, that they were reaching out, it really reminded me my purpose for coming to law school and really seeing this dream through. And so it really does have an impact. And I think you can think of moments, where you weren't feeling your best, but someone checked in on you, they did something special for you, and how that made you feel. So in these times, we just have to bind together, you guys. We really do, and continue to be that, and move that forward, I think. So definitely just pay it forward, I'd say. And we're going to get through this. We're going to be resilient, class of 2020. Regardless, life is going to continue to go on. And so this is just lessons. Because it's a moment in history. If you really think about it, like, you're going to be able to tell your kids, grandkids, family members down the line, clients, everyone's going to remember 2020. It's going to be in history books as when the world stopped. So think about how you're using this time. Really, right? When you don't think about it in the moment, right? But that's what's happening right now, right, y'all? Like,
it's the wrong type of history.
This would have been the reality.
Yes, thank you. Amen to that.
You guys are very brave. Like, I'm just thinking about everything you guys are describing is terrifying to me. So you guys are incredible, and keep doing it. And then my follow-up question to that is, we talk about all these problems that currently happen, you know what I mean? But I guess my question is, do you think that the legal field has adjusted properly to the pandemic? I know things like, diploma privilege and 100% online classes. Like, do you think that this is being effective for the legal field? Alejandra shaking her head.
Well, yeah, for Illinois bar takers, did you just say, Yoshi, that they moved it to October? Did you just say that?
Huh?
Did you just say that? No, I misheard you. Never mind. Okay, so right now in Illinois, we're facing this issue where the committee that's in charge of administering the exam, they are telling us it's still going to be in person, even though a majority of states have already either canceled it, postponed it, or moved online because of rising COVID cases again. And they're kind of just telling us like, hey, we're going to monitor the situation. If Chicago rolls back to phase 3, then we're obviously going to have to cancel the September bar. And here in Illinois, us graduates, we're kind of just like, well, where does that leave us? You know, usually students, they budget for the amount of time that they're going to be studying for the bar. Usually that's like 3 to 4 months. And then after that, you hopefully pass and you move on to the next, if you get a job or you try to take it again. Right now, it's still up in the air. We don't know if we're going to be able to take the bar for sure in September. And if, I don't know if everybody knows or not, but the bar is just the exam that we as law school graduates have to take in order to get our actual license to practice the law. So if we don't pass that exam, then we can't be hired as attorneys. We can do something else, yes, but I mean, I think many of us want to be attorneys because that's what we went to law school for. So has the legal field adjusted in that sense? I mean, I think that's a state-by-state thing. It's changing. I think Illinois could definitely do better by us law school graduates, because we're rolling down to our last loan money. You know, some of us live alone. We're trying to figure it out, and we just want to know, like, are we going to be able to take this test? Yes, if not, when? And then in terms of like classes and all that stuff, I mean, I think everyone's trying to do the best that they can. It's such a sticky situation because I feel like there's always going to be someone on one side that's going to lose out on something, right? But I don't know. What do you guys think, Lauryn and Yoshi?
I have a ton of stuff to say, but we only got a certain amount of time. I mean, I guess first and foremost, you hit it on the nose. You talk about a profession that's built on what's supposed to be equality and equity, right? You know, making sure that things are equal, making sure that the laws are assessed equally, right? When you talk about equity, I think I'm not going to say one thing or another. I mean, it's just certainty at this point, right? I'm just looking for some sense of certainty and some sense of like, if I'm going to take this thing in September, I'm going to take this thing in September, but let me know I'm taking it in September. If it's online, if it's like, you know, if I need to be in a hazmat suit, you know, at this point, I'm going to do what I got to do because it's been a journey. Okay, 2020 has been a journey. And at this point, killer bees, all this, like, if I got to take a hazmat suit into the bar exam, we ready. But I will just say, like, you know, I just encourage that for those that do have a platform, which is really what I'm focused on, and really what I'm grateful to have, even with this as a platform, is to have the confidence to speak up when it's needed. And most importantly, I think equity is important, right? So even just thinking about now, my internet went out. If I had to take an online exam and the only place I could take it was home, and there's certain rules that, like, you know, 10 minutes being offline and you fail the bar, like, that's crazy. That's absolutely insane, right? Like, there's just certain things that I think just need to be taken into account when you talk about equity. And then it's the same thing that pertains to law students, right? You had, you know, single mothers at home with children that they're raising. Like, maybe law school is the only time they can really focus, like, all different types of things that are going on. And as SBA president finishing this last semester, I was really making sure that I advocated for the students. And so as far as law students were concerned, like, a lot of students didn't like the fact that we did the grading scale that we did, but I felt like it was most equitable, right? It was giving us a chance to get 4.0s, and what we did was, you know, A, B, passing, and then no grade. So there was no failing, right? Nobody could fail. You know, some people did pass fail, but even then you could fail, right? I didn't know what was going on at home, and so I was really advocating to make sure that the best thing happened. But I just want to encourage, no matter what situation you're in, as a law student, future lawyer, it's about adapting and it's about your mentality, right? I think there's a plenty of great things to harbor on or even focus on as a future law student entering your 1 year. If you're going all remote, virtual, hybrid, whatever the case, I think one positive of being online totally is I don't got to commute. So some people got to commute like an hour, 2 hours a day. I can save 2 hours. Maybe I got to figure out how to make myself productive for those 2 hours, but that's a whole different story. But I'm gonna focus on the positives and things I need to do. Everyone's in the same boat, yo. Like everyone is trying to figure out tomorrow. Matter of fact, the next 15 minutes. After I get off this call, I don't even know what's gonna happen. So remain positive, like focus on the things you can control and doing the best you can.
And to just continue on with this conversation, I would say the law right now, the legal profession as a whole, there has been traditions that have been set. There's precedent. I think before 2020, there had been little conversation on the bar, what it tests, like its ability to determine an attorney's fitness to practice law as it is and as it stands as right now. Also about it testing minimum competency. So 2020 has given the opportunity for a lot of these conversations to be revisited, for things to be refreshed and revamped. And people that are having these conversations, they're human too. They're just like us in that they have never experienced this before. None of us have ever experienced what 2020 has brought with this global pandemic. And so they're using information, resources to make the best decisions that they can for us. But I think that it's important for you, and I'm speaking to any 2020 grad, just everyone really, where there are people that are making decisions on your behalf, that you continue to fight for what you believe in and telling your truth, because you're limited to your reality, right? So you might be thinking about a decision based on what you know is true and things that you've experienced, but as we all know, as minorities, we have different truths and we have different realities. And some people may not have had the privilege or luxury to be exposed to that. And so that's why it's important, if you're the single mom, working and you have your kids at home and you're studying and prepping for the bar, how that experience is different from someone else who don't have those obligations. And so it's really about us coming together and really being able to advocate. I mean, things are going to happen, but what I continue to hold true to is that we're going to be the future of this profession. And so we having experienced what 2020 has brought us, having taken the bar yet, and seeing how these conversations are going, that we can have that seat at the table to be those leaders to say, something needs to change. Maybe there's a different way to evaluate. And like I said, that's a whole nother conversation. But I encourage even the students that are current law students right now in the classrooms, if you're feeling like you're paying your tuition dollars and the school is not providing you with what you need because they're moving onto this online platform, that you talk to administration, talk to your SBA presidents, whoever will listen, your mentors, maybe professors at the school, and advocate for what you need, because that's important, that you're getting and not being robbed of like the opportunities and the education that you were accustomed to having when none of this was in your control. And be patient with your administration, with your leadership. Again, they're doing the best they can. They're navigating through this as well. But don't be afraid to ask for what you need and make it clear what your expectations are from your school, from your bar exam administrators, from the justices, people that are making these decisions on your behalf that are really impacting and affecting you in your future. So that's my message for everyone out there.
That's good stuff. Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. And I think we're going to have you guys back on the show, because we still have a lot of things that we didn't get to cover, and I know our time's running out. But I guess one final question, which is going to be a big question. It's, what's the biggest barriers that prevent minorities from pursuing a career in law? I know Jade in the comments, she asked how your families responded to the priority shift and things like that. So it's a hefty question, so if you guys want to take a second and think about it. But I guess what's that biggest barrier and what can we do to fix that?
You know what? And I think it's such a daunting question because we know that there's so much work that needs to be done, because it's not just one thing. It's a plethora of things that prevent us from getting here to begin that, whether that be the neighborhood you lived in, therefore the school district that you're in. What kind of family were you born into? Were they supportive of you? Did they neglect, what high school did you go to? Did you go to college? How did you pay for college? Did you work? Did you not work? So I think there's a lot of factors that goes into it. I think for sure, representation is a big one. We don't see these people, so we don't feel like it's possible, right? Like I didn't really feel like it was possible for me to go to law school until I saw somebody that looked like him. And then I'm like, well, if he could do it, then why can't I? So I think that's been a very, which, thankfully I think it's getting better, but still, there's so much work that needs to be done. I think, there's Latinas make like 2% of all attorneys in the United States, don't quote me exactly on that, but it's something like that, I would say it's a lot of things. But I'll say personally, I think one of my biggest struggles too, kind of to Jade's comment, is traditional values. As a Latina, my parents were very strict on me. I believe it or not, still have a curfew because I still live at home. I'm 26 years old, and I still kiss my mom goodnight when I come home at 2 a.m. from the bar because she's worried about me, So my priority, my family, they struggle to kind of accept the kind of new schedule that I had created, the time that I just didn't have anymore, because my family's very close-knit. Like, we're used to like having dinner together, sitting down, no phones at the table, that sort of thing. So they got really like, when I was like at the library for 12 hours, and they're like, but are you really at the library? And I'm like, I'm really at the library. Like, please understand that. So sometimes our families can even be something that we can struggle with.
I guess to piggyback off of that, I would just say the two things that I've seen, especially with like first generation college, law school law students and minorities specifically, is the financial pressures around law school, navigating how they're going to pay for that. And this affects a lot of students too, if you choose to take out loans, the astronomical amount of loan debt. And people, I think, that aren't in law school, they assume, lawyers make all of this money. And some professions that lends itself, that may be true, but that's not the reality for everyone in everyone's position. Like, I think it is a marketable degree in that, and it lends a lot of flexibility. But not everyone is going to start out making $200,000. Like, that's just not the reality. And so, especially when you're coming from a first generation or minority background, and maybe your family members are depending on you financially, or they're looking for you as the one that we invested in to make our success, or based on your successes to help us out. Now that there's so much more pressure on you to do well or succeed in ways that this investment, it lends itself, and you see the benefits of that financially. And so that can become very much so a lot of pressure on those individuals. And I've had a lot of talks with just like mentors or mentees about that. And so I think it's important to just kind of have a plan, like acknowledge what your fears are, and what barriers exist for you. And then, like Yoshi was saying earlier, there's a blueprint for that. There are resources. So talk to people about that, and you can find ways to get scholarships to navigate those challenges that are very real for you, and to still be successful despite, those fears or challenges that you have that you feel like may be holding you back from going all in to pursue your dream of becoming an attorney.
Yeah, so I guess what I will finish that hasn't been said. I mean, You talk about access. I think that's the overall thing that I want to preach is just there's so many different things that you want to quote unquote call equitable, or everyone has the equal opportunity, but do they really when it's applied, right? It's a whole different ball game. And I saw in the comments, right, just alone, like the cost of everything, right? Reality is you get through undergrad, you didn't have a full ride or a big scholarship, you're a lot of debt. Now you're talking about law school. That's a lot of debt, right? And so if you don't have the resources, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the access, you don't have all these different things, it's hindrance, right? And so I'm just super, super, super huge on access and using my platform to be able to build the next generation and to show and to give and pass on the knowledge, the capital, the access, like everything that's needed to give us that equal playing field, right? Because when you talk about the vision, we have to build to even get to see where a lot of our counterparts are, right? To even see what we're talking about. And I think that's in a sense not only inequitable, but it's a shame. And so, we've always had to hustle harder. We've always had to, my parents always taught me from an early age, you always got to be better, right? And it may not be fair, but that's the truth. And so having that sort of mentality from the beginning, it's going to take you far. But I think for me specifically, part of my mission as I think a lawyer is if I can do anything for you, if I can open a door for you, connect you to someone, open up my resources, there's enough room at this table for everyone to eat. And I will do whatever in my power, even if I don't know you, to make sure that you have the opportunity that maybe I didn't have or make it easier than I had it. And the reason that is because we deserve, not only do we deserve, but if you're willing to work hard for it, which a lot of us, that's the only option, then let me help you and let you learn from the things that I've been able to do and the things that I've had to learn the hard way. And let's build, right? Collaboration over competition. Mm-hmm. And so thank you for having us. I think this is, again, a collaborative space where we can really just propel others forward. But, we as lawyers, we as that minority of the percentage of the statistics have to do our part, because it's not enough to just make it. You got to bring the next person on. And if I can put someone on my shoulder so you can see a little higher than I can, I know it'll come back to me. Like, it's not a matter of competition, because again, at the root of it is I believe in myself. So I will give Ali, Lauryn, Gabriela, I'll give y'all my opportunities because I have faith in myself. And there's no need for me to hide the ball from y'all if that's an opportunity that's meant for y'all. Why wouldn't I pass that on to you? There's no hatred. There's no competition there. We gain from putting ourselves in positions and propelling us in those roles that are much needed. So thank you again to you. I appreciate having this platform, but there's a lot of work to be done.
I agree. Thank you, Gabby. I think what you're doing is really important.
I agree with that. Thank you, guys. Thanks, guys. Thank you guys for being on it. You guys have made this show amazing. And before we let you guys go, you guys, I hopefully will be back on the show, maybe even when you're Esquires after you pass the bar, because I know you will do great. But before we let you off the show, can you please provide, could you guys give your social media handles or a way for our viewers to connect with you if they have questions directly for you or if they need motivation or anything? Can you let people know how to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Do we just say it out loud?
Awesome.
Do we just say it?
So why don't you start?
Okay. So I think, I think the URL to my Facebook is going to come up pretty soon. But my actual handle for my Instagram is no, not Pablo Escobar. Just because my last name is Escobar and everybody always thinks it's related to him.
That's epic. Lauryn, you want to go ahead?
Sure. So I see it scrolling down below. You can message me on Facebook. I also have Instagram. It's Forever Young. The L, also the first Forever is a 0. So my last name's Young. So that was that play on words. And I'm on Twitter as well. But just reach out to me and I'd be happy to chat.
I'm glad y'all went first. My Instagram is boring. It's my name, Yoshi Haynie. But I also run a page called the Law School Mentor. And for this exact reason, I have people on there with virtual coffee talks with the intention of expanding your network as well as giving you the access to ask questions so you can learn from people in the industry, dropping tips, dropping the knowledge, making myself accessible. I'm an open book. You want my phone number, I give it to you. I wish I had it out here, but I don't want spam calls. Not that I don't trust, not that I don't trust Boca Raton Tribune, but and then as far as inspiration, I didn't put this in there, but I started a nonprofit during law school, and it's called Encourage You, the letter U, too, and constant daily posts of encouragement, motivation, inspiration, but really just to show that like everyone has a story. You just have to be willing to listen. And so you also can't say you don't have time because I started a whole nonprofit while we're in law school. So you definitely got time, y'all. Like y'all have plenty of time in law school. It just
Jeez, no pressure.
Hey, set the bar high so people can so people can go higher.
Setting the bar really high.
Again, you can't dream it if you don't see it.
Are you right? You're right.
This is true. That's true. That's awesome. You guys are incredible. Like I've said multiple times, I just want you all to know how grateful I am that you guys came on and had these tough conversations, sensitive conversations. And good luck to you guys starting for the bar. Like I said, you guys will be back on the show as Esquires, and I can't wait. So thank you guys, and thank you to the viewers. Thank you for all the great questions and the great comments throughout the show. I hope this was helpful and insightful for you in any way. So thank you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.